What would you do if your son was lying in a coma and your mother threatened to cut off his future unless you left his bedside for a family wedding? Would you walk away from your child to keep the peace, or would you finally draw the line? This is the true story of Claire, a single mother, torn between generations of family pressure and the one person who truly needed her. What she chose changed everything. Stay with us, because what happens next will stay with you long after the story ends. The rhythmic beeping of machines was the only sound in the room, steady but ominous. Claire Jennings hadn't left her son's side in over 40 hours. Logan, her 11-year-old boy, lay motionless beneath a tangle of wires and IVs, his head wrapped in bandages, bruises painting his pale skin like tragic brushstrokes. The accident had been sudden. A car veered into the bike path. Logan's scooter was crushed, his skull fractured, internal bleeding, a medically induced coma. Claire hadn't let go of his hand since the ER. Her phone buzzed on the tray table beside her. She jumped, more from fatigue than surprise. A glance at the screen made her stomach twist. "Mom." She hesitated, then answered quietly, trying not to disturb the machines. "Hi, Mom." Deborah Jennings didn't even say hello. Her voice was clipped, composed, like she was calling from her country club and not talking to her daughter whose child was in critical condition. "Rachel's wedding is this Saturday. We need you in Portland by Friday afternoon. There's a welcome dinner that night." Claire blinked, thinking she'd misheard. "Mom, Tu can't leave Logan. He's still unconscious." "We're not out of the woods yet." There was a pause. Then, with a tone chilled by ice, Deborah said, "Claire, this wedding has been in the works for a year. If you don't show up for your own sister's big day, don't expect to be part of this family moving forward." Claire stared at the hospital wall as if trying to break through it. "You're serious? Logan is in the ICU. He hasn't opened his eyes in 2 days. And there's nothing you can do by sitting there staring at him," her mother snapped. "The doctors are handling it. Your presence won't change the outcome." Claire's hand trembled as she gripped the phone tighter. "Mom, I'm not abandoning my son to go pour champagne and take pictures. Rachel will understand." Deborah's voice dropped, cool and cutting. "She won't. Neither will I. This isn't about champagne. It's about showing up. Families show up for each other. If you don't come, Claire, we're done." There it was, the old ultimatum. The line in the sand Deborah had drawn Claire behind her entire life. Claire hung up without another word, her breath caught in her throat. The room felt colder, smaller. She glanced at Logan's small, still form. "I'm here," she whispered to him, brushing his fingers with her thumb. "I'm not going anywhere." Then she opened her contacts and deleted her mother's number. Growing up in Boise, Idaho, Claire always knew who the favorite was. Rachel had ringlet curls, ballet trophies, and straight A's. She attended the best private school in town, while Claire, 2 years older and quieter by nature, went to public school. She loved books, sketching animals, and being alone. That made her strange in Deborah's eyes. Deborah, who believed being loved meant being admired. Rachel was admired. Claire was tolerated. At school events, Deborah clapped the loudest for Rachel's recitals. Afterward, she'd glance at Claire's science fair project or soccer medal with forced enthusiasm, if she looked at all. "You should stand straighter," Deborah would whisper. "Don't slouch in pictures." At home, the criticism was constant. Claire's handwriting was messy. Her clothes didn't fit right. "You'll never attract anyone worthwhile if you don't learn to take care of yourself," Deborah said once, when Claire was just 14. Claire stopped asking for help with prom dresses, college applications, or anything that might be judged as needy. Instead, she learned how to disappear in plain sight. But she didn't disappear from everyone. Jason Wright had noticed her at Boise State. He was a junior in ROTC and had the kindest eyes Claire had ever seen. He liked that she wasn't flashy, that she laughed at his dumb jokes. He encouraged her photography, sat through her rants about social inequality, and treated her like she was the smartest person in the room. They married at 24. Deborah hadn't approved. An army boy? Really, Claire? You could have done better. Claire hadn't expected her mother's blessing. But when Deborah refused to help with the wedding costs and critiqued her daughter's simple dress and non-floral centerpieces, it still stung. Only her father, Walter, quiet and gray-haired, handed her an envelope at the reception. "Don't tell your mother. I just want you to have a good start." Inside was a check, modest, but enough to feel like love. Logan was born a year later, a curious, observant little boy with Jason's sense of humor and Claire's green eyes. He was everything. And then, Jason was gone, killed by an IED outside Aleppo, the folded flag, the two men in uniform. Claire could barely stand at the funeral. She'd become a 29-year-old widow with a 4-year-old son and no emotional safety net. Deborah's version of help came swiftly and with conditions. "You can't raise a boy alone. Move back home," she said flatly. "There's a school down the street, a bigger support system. Rachel and I can help." But Claire knew better. Help meant surveillance. Help meant judgment. She stayed in their 2-bedroom apartment and took a job as a school secretary, fitting in photography sessions on weekends to make ends meet. Deborah sent gifts, remote-controlled cars, expensive coats, even a mini telescope. But every call was laced with condescension. "If you had a real job, Claire, you could afford these things yourself. Why is Logan still in daycare? Rachel had the twins reading at 4. You should have remarried by now. Children need male discipline." Claire said nothing. She smiled for Logan's sake. She kept the peace, even when it hurt. Rachel's life unfolded like a Hallmark movie. Engaged to a tax attorney, bought a 3-story house in Portland with a backyard that belonged in a catalog. Deborah visited monthly, doted on the twins, posted photos online. Claire and Logan were rarely mentioned. Still, Claire tried. Because Logan adored his cousins, and Claire had grown up believing that even toxic love was better than none, she let Deborah visit on holidays. She accepted help for doctor's appointments, endured lectures on parenting. She swallowed the loneliness, the sense that she and her son were always a little bit less than. And then came the accident. One moment, Logan was laughing in his helmet, zipping toward the community center on his scooter. The next, Claire's phone rang an unknown number, a breathless voice, an ambulance en route. Now, here in the sterile hum of the ICU, Claire watched the machines breathe for her boy. And for the first time, she saw her mother's love for what it truly was: conditional, performative, and never enough. By the second night in the ICU, Claire had stopped counting the hours. Sleep came in 10-minute snatches, interrupted by the rise and fall of Logan's oxygen levels, or the soft buzz of monitors shifting rhythm. The nurses were kind. One of them, Alicia, had brought her tea and whispered, "You're doing great, Mom," before disappearing into the hallway. Claire clung to those words like they were gospel. But outside that room, her phone kept lighting up. At first, it was texts from Rachel. "Hope Logan's okay. Just wanted to confirm, you're still coming this weekend? Photographer needs to finalize head count for family portraits." Claire stared at the message like it was a joke. She didn't reply. An hour later, another ping. "I know it's hard, but this day is important too. Please don't make it about drama." Drama. Her son had a tube in his skull relieving pressure from his brain. His face was swollen. Claire hadn't heard his voice in 3 days, and Rachel called it drama. She turned the phone over. The next morning, a new message, this time from Deborah. "Your absence would send the wrong message to the rest of the family. Think about Logan's future. You wouldn't want to jeopardize that." Claire read it again. Logan's future. She knew what that meant. The Jennings Family Education Trust. Set up years ago by Deborah's side of the family, a combination of inheritance and investments, meant to help the next generation succeed. It wasn't a massive fund, but Claire had counted on it. With her salary and Jason's military benefits, Logan's college plan still relied on that trust. Her fingers went cold. Later that day, Deborah called. Claire answered only because she thought, foolishly, her mother might finally ask how Logan was. "Claire," Deborah said, "I spoke with the attorney. If you refuse to attend the wedding, the trustees have the right to revise their commitments. It's not personal, it's about family values." Claire closed her eyes. "You're threatening to cut off your grandson's college fund because I won't leave his hospital bed? I'm reminding you what's at stake. Logan won't know if you're gone for one day. You could drive down, attend the ceremony, and be back by Sunday. He'll still be unconscious. And Rachel deserves your support." Claire's voice cracked. "He's not a calendar conflict. He's my child." Deborah sighed. "You always make things so emotional. We're trying to do what's best for everyone. But if you insist on acting like a martyr, we'll adjust accordingly." That night, Claire stared at Logan's motionless body and tried not to scream. How had it come to this? Her mother had always been sharp, but this was different. This was deliberate cruelty, masked as logic. Rachel, who had grown up with praise and piano lessons, and Deborah's unwavering pride, hadn't sent a single message asking how Logan was doing. No. Is he stable? No. Do you need help? Instead, hope you don't ruin this for me. Claire opened a voice memo app on her phone and recorded a single sentence she couldn't bring herself to say out loud. "I think my family only loves me when I'm useful." Then she hit save. The next day brought flowers. A huge arrangement arrived at the nurse's station. Peonies, roses, baby's breath all arranged with military precision, and a note that read, "For Logan, hoping he gets better in time to see his mom walk his aunt down the aisle. Deborah Jennings." Even the nurse looked confused. Is this a good time to bring this in?" Claire shook her head. "Please take them away, or donate them to the chapel." She didn't cry, not this time. Instead, she pulled out a notebook and made a list. Not of guests or RSVPs, but of every moment she had ever accepted something from her mother with a hidden condition. $200 for Logan's crib, followed by, "If only Jason had a real job." Thanksgiving dinners where she was told not to mention she was on food stamps. Babysitting offers that ended with critiques of Logan's delayed speech. The family Christmas card where she and Logan were cropped to the side. And now, a threat wrapped in roses. Claire drew a hard line under the last entry. Then she stood, walked over to Logan's bedside and held his hand. "I don't know what we'll do, buddy," she whispered, "but I'm not letting anyone use you to control me anymore." She meant it, even if it cost her everything. The fourth morning came with no change. Claire sat stiffly in the vinyl hospital chair, legs cramping, neck aching from trying to nap upright. She hadn't left the ICU for more than a few minutes at a time. Every beep on the monitor made her heart jump. Every breath from the ventilator felt borrowed, like time on a clock she couldn't control. She stared at Logan's face, searching for something that would tell her he was still in there. His right hand twitched once in the night, but the nurse told her it might have been reflex. Claire had clung to that movement, like a life preserver. Her phone had been on silent since the previous afternoon, but when she unlocked it, the notifications flooded in. Missed calls from Deborah, texts from Rachel, even a message from her Aunt Sheila. "We understand this is hard, Claire, but don't punish the whole family because of one event. Logan wouldn't want you to isolate yourself. If you don't come, Mom says we can't keep funding his education. Please don't make this worse." Worse? What could possibly be worse than watching your son lie in a coma while your own family guilt-tripped you over missed catering appointments? Claire stood abruptly, the room spinning with exhaustion. She made it to the hallway, leaned against the wall, and took 3 deep breaths. That was when Pastor Nathan, the hospital chaplain, appeared beside her like a whisper. He'd checked in before, a gentleman with soft eyes and no pressure to talk. "You look like someone who needs silence," he said. Claire let out a bitter laugh. "Silence I have. It's the judgment that won't stop ringing." He waited, not pressing, so she spoke. "My mother says if I don't attend my sister's wedding, she'll cut off my son's college fund. I'm sitting by his ICU bed and they want me to dress up and smile. To pretend." He nodded slowly, as if absorbing every word. "I thought I needed her support," Claire continued. "But all she's ever offered were chains disguised as kindness." Nathan let the silence stretch, then said, "That's not love. That's leverage." Claire looked at him. "But she's my mom. Biology is only part of the story," he replied. "The rest is choice, relationship, safety, respect." Claire pressed her back to the wall, sliding slowly down until she was sitting on the cold tile floor. "I'm so tired," she whispered. "You have every right to be," he said gently. "You're carrying grief, fear, exhaustion, and the weight of a lifetime of proving yourself to someone who won't acknowledge it." Tears finally came, warm and unstoppable. "I keep thinking," she said through a sob, "what if I'm making it worse for Logan? What if someday he resents me for not swallowing my pride and keeping peace with them for his sake?" Nathan sat beside her, knees creaking softly. "Let me ask you something," he said. "What would you want Logan to do if someday someone treated him the way your mother treats you?" Claire didn't hesitate. "I'd want him to walk away, protect himself." "Then teach him how," Nathan said simply. "Show him what boundaries look like. You're not just his mother right now. You're his example." The words hit hard. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. "But the money, the trust, what if he needs it?" Nathan didn't flinch. "You'll find another way. That money comes with a price you can't afford anymore." They sat in silence. The hum of hospital life moved around them. Finally, Claire stood. "Thank you," she said, voice hoarse. He nodded. "You're not alone, Claire. You never were. You've just been surviving in a system that told you love had to be earned." She walked back to Logan's room, steadier than before, though her heart still ached. As she entered, a nurse was adjusting his blanket. The machines beeped steadily. Claire sat down again and reached for his hand. "Hey, buddy," she whispered. "I almost forgot who I was in all this. But I remember now. I'm your mom, and I choose you. No matter what they threaten, no matter what they take away, I choose you." And for the first time since the accident, Claire didn't feel powerless. She felt ready. That evening, Claire did something she never imagined she could. She opened her contacts, scrolled down to the familiar name marked Mom, and hit delete. Then she did the same for Rachel. Her fingers trembled afterward, not from regret, but from the tremor that comes after standing up on shaking legs. A lifetime of conditioning doesn't vanish in a single gesture, but something in her had shifted. The spell was breaking. For the first time in decades, Claire had said no, and no meant freedom. The air in the hospital room felt different now, no longer suffocating, but still heavy with waiting. Logan was still unconscious, still tethered to machines, but his body was stable. The swelling in his brain had plateaued, and the doctor had begun to reduce his sedation slightly, looking for signs of response. Each morning brought tiny updates. His oxygen levels were holding. His reflexes were present. His blood pressure was strong. Claire had begun talking to him more often. Not out of obligation, but out of connection. "Hey, bud," she'd say, resting her head near his pillow. "Remember that science fair project you wanted to build with solar panels? I was thinking we could do it together when you get home. I promise I won't glue my fingers this time." One afternoon, as she was mid-story about Logan's Lego disaster that broke a kitchen lamp 2 months ago, she felt it just the slightest squeeze. Her eyes widened. She held her breath. "Logan," she whispered. "Sweetheart, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand again. And he did. It was weak, fleeting, but it was real. Claire nearly collapsed from relief, laughing and crying all at once. She hit the call button, and within minutes, the room was full of movement nurses checking monitors, a neurologist performing assessments, someone paging Dr. Ellis. They confirmed it. Logan was responding. It would be a long road, they said. Comas don't lift like curtains, they fade in and out. But this was the first true sign that he was still fighting his way back. Claire sat at his side through the night, talking to him softly every time his eyelids fluttered. When he seemed agitated, she held his hand. When he rested, she whispered prayers she didn't know she still believed in. The next day, his breathing improved. The ventilator remained, but his body was beginning to initiate breaths on its own. That evening, his eyelids opened for longer than a second. He didn't speak, but his eyes, those green eyes that mirrored hers, looked around the room, then landed on her. She smiled through a flood of tears. "Hey, baby, it's Mom. I'm right here." He blinked, slow and deliberate, and though his face barely moved, Claire saw it, the smallest smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. He knew her. That was all she needed. The next few days passed like fragments of sunlight breaking through a clouded sky. The ventilator came out. His throat was raw, and his words came out cracked and slurred, but they were his. He asked for water, then for his favorite cereal, then for his robot kit. Claire nearly laughed when he whispered, "Did I miss school?" Dr. Ellis chuckled and replied, "You've got a doctor's note for that, kid." Recovery was still uphill. Logan couldn't sit upright for long. His memory was hazy. He cried when the lights were too bright or noises startled him. But he was back, and Claire was no longer afraid to face what came next. One morning, as she helped him sip water, he rasped, "You stayed with me, didn't you?" She nodded, eyes glassy, every minute. Even when Grandma said to go, Claire froze. He remembered. "A little," he whispered. "I heard you on the phone. You were mad." Claire swallowed hard. "I was, yeah, but not at you. I was mad because people expected me to leave you. And I couldn't. I wouldn't." Logan nodded slowly. "Good. I didn't want to wake up alone." Claire kissed his forehead, brushing sweaty curls from his temple. "You'll never wake up alone, baby. Not if I can help it." Later that day, she sat in the hospital cafe with a real meal for the first time in a week. She watched people come and go, nurses, families, volunteers, and realized something she hadn't said out loud. She felt at peace. She didn't have money. She didn't have family support. She didn't know what would happen with the college fund. But she had Logan, and she had herself. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Logan was still groggy when they came. Claire had just finished helping him settle after another round of physical therapy. His first attempt to sit up had left him dizzy and tired, but determined. He was resting quietly, eyelids fluttering, when the door swung open. Deborah entered first, perfectly composed in a beige trench coat and silk scarf that didn't belong in a children's ICU. Rachel followed, her expression somewhere between concern and calculated discomfort. Claire stood up slowly, instinctively moving closer to Logan's bed. "There you are," Deborah said, as if Claire had been hiding. "We've been trying to reach you." Claire didn't bother responding. She hadn't turned her phone back on in days. Rachel took a step forward. "We need to talk. Outside." Claire shook her head. "I'm not leaving his room." "It's okay, Mom," Logan whispered hoarsely. "I'm okay." Claire gave him a gentle smile and turned to the doorway. 2 minutes, she said, "and I'm watching from the window." They stepped into the hallway, the glass door behind them framing Logan's small, pale figure. Claire folded her arms. "You're being completely unfair," Deborah began. "Your sister's wedding was humiliated. People were asking where you were. I had to say you were sick." Claire didn't blink. "I was sick. Sick with fear that my son wouldn't wake up." "You could have come for just an hour," Rachel interjected. The family photo looks ridiculous without you. Claire let out a sharp breath. You mean without your prop? Because that's all I am to this family, something that makes the picture look complete. Deborah's voice sharpened. Don't twist this into victimhood, Claire. We've supported you for years. The money, the gifts, the trust for Logan. There it is, Claire said softly. The price tag. Deborah's eyes narrowed. If you think you can disrespect us like this and still expect to benefit from the family estate, I don't, Claire interrupted, calm and clear. I don't expect anything from you anymore. And for the record, Logan's future isn't for sale. Rachel looked away. Deborah's lips pressed into a hard line. You've made your choice, then, her mother said coldly. Don't come crying when you need help later. Claire smiled, not out of joy, but from a place deeper, resolve. I didn't make a choice today, Mom. I made it years ago. I just didn't realize until now. I choose my son, not your money, not your approval, not a fake smile in a family photo. Deborah took a step closer. You can't dictate whether we see our grandson. I can. And I will, Claire replied. You can visit if you're positive, supportive, and respectful. 5 minutes, one at a time. If you bring guilt or threats into that room, I'll have security walk you out. Deborah looked like she might explode, but instead, she turned sharply and walked back into the room. Claire followed behind, arms crossed. Deborah leaned over Logan and put on her best performance. Sweetheart, she cooed. Grandma's here. We were so worried. Logan blinked slowly, unsure. Claire saw the confusion in his eyes, the careful way he responded. When 5 minutes passed, Claire stepped forward. Time's up, but Deborah began. I said 5 minutes. Rachel followed, smiling stiffly, showing Logan a few photos on her phone, of which included him. Claire watched it all like someone finally outside the snow globe, seeing it shake. When they were gone, Claire sat beside Logan, brushing his hair back gently. You okay? She asked. He nodded slightly. Were you fighting? She hesitated, just reminding people what matters. Logan studied her face. You stayed, even when they said to leave. I'll always stay, she said. And for the first time in her life, Claire felt the full weight of peace, the kind that comes not from pleasing others, but from knowing you've finally chosen what's right. 1 year later, the hospital was just a memory. Logan walked with a slight limp now, but it hardly slowed him down. He'd grown taller, leaner, more thoughtful. Robotics Club became his world. He loved it precision, logic, cause and effect. Things made sense there. They lived in a smaller apartment, now 2 bedrooms. No frills, but it was bright. Filled with photos Claire had taken herself and drawings Logan had taped to the fridge. She had picked up more freelance photography, work small weddings, graduation portraits, newborns. It didn't pay what she used to imagine a career should, but it gave her enough time to be present. The trust fund was gone. Deborah had followed through on her threat, revising the will, removing Claire and Logan completely. Her father had called to explain, voice heavy with guilt but not resistance. Claire hadn't asked for anything back. She didn't need it. Rachel mailed a Christmas card in December. Deborah didn't. Claire placed the envelope in a drawer, unopened. Some days, Logan still asked, "Do you think Grandma will ever change?" Claire never answered yes or no. She'd simply say, "That's not up to us." On his 13th birthday, they had a tiny party in the park. Just a few friends, a homemade cake, and one very clunky robot that Logan built with Jake from school. Claire watched from the picnic bench, camera in hand, when Logan turned and caught her eye. He smiled, not just a flash of joy, but something deeper, trust. After the cake, they sat together on the swing set, legs dragging through the dirt. "Mom," Logan said quietly, "I'm glad you didn't go to the wedding." Claire turned to him. "Yeah?" He nodded. "I remember waking up, and you were there. I wasn't scared." She squeezed his hand, heart swelling. "That's all I ever wanted." For a long time, they sat like that, swinging gently, surrounded by the laughter of other kids and the rustle of early spring leaves. And Claire thought, maybe this is what breaking free feels like. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, honest, real. She looked up at the sky and asked herself, when love demands your silence, your absence, or your sacrifice, what does it stop being love?